You have $81 million, and you're standing in line at the DMV behind a man arguing about a $40 parking ticket. Nobody in this building knows. The clerk who calls your number won't know. The machine that printed your ticket can't know. You're B47, same as the teenager beside you renewing his first license, and that is exactly how you wanted it. Here's how a number that large stayed that quiet, and why the line at the DMV is the one place on earth it finally disappears. There are two kinds of money, and they do not behave the same way. Loud money announces itself. It buys the thing that signals you've arrived, and then it bills you for that signal every month for the next 5 years. Quiet money does the opposite. It moves before anyone is awake, into something that never asks to be seen, and it grows in the dark while the loud kind is busy being admired. The difference is not income. That's the part almost everyone gets wrong. The difference is whether your money is working to be noticed or working to set you free. And here is the strange thing about the room you're standing in. Of every room money walks you into, the DMV is the only one that cannot tell the two apart. A bank can see your number. An airline can see your number. A car dealer can read it off you before you finish your first sentence. But the DMV sees a license that expires in 9 days, and a photo that needs replacing, and it processes you in the order you arrived. No faster, no slower. For most people, that ordinary line is a small, daily indignity. For you, it's the closest thing to invisibility money can buy. If you're the kind of person who'd rather build it than show it, you already know where to subscribe. We'll be over here, on the quiet side of the rope. So let's climb, because the way every system in your life treats you changes with a single number, and you're about to watch that number rise from below 0 to 81 million, one floor at a time. Watch where the money goes when nobody's looking. Start below nothing. The screen says -$4, not 400. 4. You moved a payment one day too early, and the system charged you $35 for the privilege of being short by the price of a coffee. That's the first lesson money teaches you at the bottom. The less you have, the more it costs to have it. The bank isn't cruel. It's just honest. At -$4, you are a risk to be priced, and so it prices you. A fee for the overdraft. A fee for the account that slipped below its minimum. A fee that exists mainly to remind you that you slipped below the minimum at all. You pay to be poor, quietly, automatically, on an ordinary Wednesday when you weren't even looking. And the system has a memory. Miss a minimum twice, and the next overdraft costs more than the first. Bounce a payment, and a number somewhere drops, and that number decides the rate on everything you'll borrow for the next 7 years. At the bottom, the cost of money compounds against you in the dark, the same way it will one day compound for you. The machinery is identical, only the direction is different. That's worth sitting with, because it means the floor and the ceiling are built from the exact same parts. And the DMV that week? The DMV charges you the same $42 renewal it charges everyone in the building. It does not know you're -4. It does not care. You wait, you pay, you leave. The one system in your whole life that treats you like everybody else is the system that can't see how far down you actually are. Hold on to that, because it doesn't change for the next $81 million. The first 100,000 is the hardest money you will ever make, and not for the reason people think. It's hard because nothing about it shows. You spend 3, 4, 5 years moving money into the dark, and the world outside your life looks identical the entire time. Same car, same apartment, same coat. The number climbs in a place no one can see, including, on most days, you. There is no applause for the first 100,000. There is no host who knows your name. There is only the slow, silent accumulation of a thing you can't point to. This is the fork. This is where most people lose the game without ever knowing they were playing it. Because right around here, the world starts handing you the costume. Pre-approved for a card with a limit larger than everything you've saved. A lease on a car that smells like a life you haven't earned yet. The offer arrives in a dozen disguises, but underneath it's always the same offer. Spend money you don't have to look like a person you're not, and pay the difference forever. And the offers get better at their job the closer you get to escaping them. That's the part nobody warns you about. At -$4, nobody offered you anything. At 40,000, the moment you finally have a little to protect is the exact moment the world arrives to help you spend it. The timing is not an accident. The costume is never sold to the people who can't afford it. It's sold to the people who just barely can, because they're the ones with something left to lose. Dylan took the costume. You and Dylan started in the same place. Same year, same town, roughly the same paycheck. But Dylan reads the world through what it can see, and the world rewarded him fast for it. The leased coupe. The watch that costs more than a month of his rent. When Dylan walks into a dealership, the salesmen stand up. When Dylan walks into a restaurant, the host already has his name. You saw it happen once, on a Wednesday, at a place Dylan picked. The keys handed to a valet. The table by the glass. The bottle he didn't really want but ordered anyway because the room expected it of the version of himself he'd built. You watched the whole performance cost him a number you could estimate to the dollar, and you watched him enjoy almost none of it, because the point of the evening was never the evening. The point was being seen having it. The system reads Dylan as wealthy, so it treats him as wealthy. And that is the trap. Because being treated as wealthy is expensive, and Dylan pays for the treatment with the exact money he was supposed to be keeping. Every time the room rises to meet him, a little more of his future quietly leaves the building. You went the other way. You kept the old car. You kept the number nobody sees. And month after month, while Dylan's signal got louder, your quiet money moved in the dark and got larger. Notice this, because everyone misses it. The two of you were never really in the same race. He was buying the appearance of the finish line. You were walking toward the actual one. By your late 30s, you cross $250,000. Not in your hand. In the dark. In the account you fund first thing every Wednesday before the money has a chance to become a feeling. And something shifts. Barely. The bank stops charging you to exist. The little fees go silent. A letter arrives offering you a preferred checking account, which is just the bank's way of admitting it has noticed you're no longer a risk to be priced but a balance worth keeping. For the first time, you are slightly visible to the machine. Priya is visible too. For the opposite reason. Priya earns $40,000 a year more than you do. She is the one the bank should be chasing. On paper, she is winning by a wide margin. The title, the salary, the desk by the window. But Priya's account does the same thing every single month. It fills on the 1st and empties by the 30th, and the size of the paycheck only ever sets the size of the life that swallows it. Priya isn't careless. That's what makes her worth watching. She is doing exactly what she was taught to do. Earn more, live more, and trust that the earning will always outrun the living. It never does, because the living is loud, and loud money will always find the edge of whatever you hand it. You watched her get a raise last spring, $11,000 more a year, hard-won, well-deserved. Within 2 months, the raise was gone, not to anything reckless, just absorbed, the way water is absorbed by sand. A slightly nicer place. A slightly newer car. A life that quietly expanded to the precise size of the new number and then asked for a little more. The raise didn't make Priya richer. It made her life more expensive. Those are not the same thing, and the gap between them is where most of a working life disappears. You earn less than Priya, and you are quietly, invisibly, years ahead of her. The bank can see her salary. It cannot see that there is nothing standing behind it. That's the difference between loud money and quiet money in a single person. One of you is performing wealth. One of you is holding it. The first million arrives without a sound. No wire that wakes you. No champagne. No moment. It's an ordinary Wednesday, and you're standing in a hardware store holding a half-inch plumbing fitting when the number ticks past a seven-figure line you've watched approach for years. You don't tell anyone. You pay for the fitting. You drive home with the radio off, and the strangest part isn't the number. It's that nothing on the outside of your life has changed, and nothing will tomorrow either. You don't announce it. That's the point. But the systems notice now, even when the people don't. A banker calls. Not the branch. A banker. With a direct line and a first name he'd like you to use. The preferred account becomes a private one. A velvet rope you never knew was there gets unclipped somewhere, and suddenly the friction is gone. Fees waived before you ask. Holds released early. The call answered on the first ring. The world has read your number and decided you're owed a little courtesy. This is the floor where most people start to spend, because the courtesy feels good. Being recognized by the machine is its own kind of drug, and the machine knows the exact dose. So it offers you the heavy metal card, the one with the lounge access and the weight that makes a sound when you set it on the counter. It is the same costume Dylan bought at $40,000, only tailored better and sold in a quieter voice. You decline. Not out of pride. Out of arithmetic. You've done the math on what the recognition costs, and across your whole life the recognition has never once paid you back. And the DMV? That same ordinary Wednesday? $42. B47. You wait the exact length the man with the parking ticket waits. The one-room money still can't speak in, and you've started quietly to love standing in it. By the time you pass 5 million, the courting turns serious. The letters become phone calls. The phone calls come with lunch attached. People you've never met know things about your life they shouldn't, and they use those things gently to make the next product feel like a personal favor rather than a sale. The pressure isn't loud. That's what makes it work. It arrives as attention, and attention is the one thing the costume buyers were always starving for. You are not starving for it. That, more than the number itself, is what keeps you safe. You know who taught you this, even though he never once said a word about it. Mr. Ellis lives 4 doors down. He drives a sedan older than some of your coworkers, mows his own lawn on Wednesday evenings, and waves with 2 fingers lifted off the steering wheel. For years, you read him the way the whole street read him. A retired man getting by, careful with the thermostat because he had to be. You were wrong by about 8 figures. Mr. Ellis sold something quietly a long time ago, and he has spent every decade since making sure no one could tell. No watch, no badge on the car. He waits in the same DMV line as the rest of the street, and he lets the clerk call him sir, the way the clerk calls everyone sir. When the world underestimates Mr. Ellis, he does not correct it, he banks it. The underestimation is the entire point. It is the cheapest security he has ever bought, and he pays for it by simply saying nothing at all. You stood behind him in line once, and didn't know yet what you were looking at. He renewed his license, paid his $42, made a quiet joke to the clerk about the photo, and left in the old sedan. A man the whole room had already finished judging in the first half-second. You understand now that the judgment was the gift. Every person who decided Mr. Ellis was ordinary handed him a little more of the only thing money had stopped being able to buy him. To be left alone. That is the model. Not the watch. The silence. $10 million. And the courtesy becomes choreography. Now there are people whose whole job is to make sure you never wait. Doors open a half-second before you reach them. Someone remembers your children's names. There's a tier above the tier you didn't know existed, and above that one another, and the climb never quite ends. Because the entire structure is built to keep you feeling that the next floor up is the one where you'll finally arrive. Loud money with better manners is still loud money. It just whispers now. And the whisper is harder to refuse than the shout ever was. Nobody at this floor pressures you. They flatter you with ease instead. The car that's already waiting. The room that's already booked. The problem that's already solved before you knew you had it. It feels less like spending and more like being cared for, which is precisely why it's dangerous. The costume at $40,000 was easy to spot. The costume at $10 million is woven from convenience, and convenience never looks like a costume. It looks like you've earned the right to stop noticing what things cost. That's the moment the quiet ones lose the thread, and you watched enough of them lose it to know the shape of the drop. And then $81 million. And you finally understand the joke. The joke is that the treatment was never the prize. Every floor of recognition you climbed was also a floor you could be flattered from, sold from, watched from. The higher you went, the harder the world worked to hand you a louder version of yourself. The car with the badge, the membership with the brass plate, the seat with your name on it. You said no to nearly all of it, and not because there's any virtue in a worn-out car. You said no because you'd finally worked out what the number was actually for. It was never for the doors that open faster. It was for the one door you finally get to close. So you keep the apartment a little smaller than you can afford. You keep the car 11 years past the point Dylan would have traded it in. You keep the number where it belongs, which is nowhere anyone can find it. And once every few years, on an ordinary Wednesday, you stand in line at the DMV with $81 million and a paper ticket that says B47, and you feel the one thing almost nobody with that number ever gets to feel. You feel completely perfectly ordinary. On purpose. Here's what that actually costs. Because there is a price, and it would be dishonest to climb all this way and pretend there isn't one. The price is that nobody claps. Dylan got applause for 11 years. The double takes, the host who knew his name, the small daily proof that he mattered. You got silence. While the costume earned Dylan his steady doses of being seen, you earned nothing visible at all. Just a number rising in the dark, witnessed by no one. There's a loneliness in that the offers never mention. You did the hard thing, the patient thing, the quiet thing, and the world's answer was to treat you exactly the way it treats everyone, which most days means hardly noticing you at all. You wanted to vanish into the middle of the crowd, and the crowd obliged. That is the deal you signed. You don't get the security and the recognition both. You trade one for the other, and you keep trading. Every Wednesday, for years. Priya, for all of it, still gets told she's winning. Dylan still gets stood up for when he walks into a room. And you get a ticket that says B47. Some Wednesdays that lands lighter than others. There were years you wanted to tell someone, just once, to set the number down on a table and watch a familiar face rearrange itself. You never did. Not because you're stronger than that wish, but because you learned where the wish leads. The moment you say it out loud, the number stops being yours and starts being a thing between you and whoever heard it. The quiet you spent a decade building would be gone in a single sentence, and you'd never get it back at any price. So you keep standing in the line, holding the secret the way Mr. Ellis held his, letting the room finish judging you in the first half second, and you let that be enough. So you have to be honest with yourself about why you chose this. If you did it to be admired later, to one day reveal the number and watch the faces in the room change, then you built the wrong thing. Because that day rarely comes, and when it does, it lands smaller than you expected it would. The only version of this that holds is the one where the quiet itself was the reward. Where not flinching when the money lands, not announcing it, not needing the room to know, where that was the thing you were after the whole time. The number nobody sees only works if you never needed them to see it. That's the whole game. And once you understand that, a quieter thing settles in. You stop measuring the number against other people because there's no one to measure it against who knows it exists. The wealth stops being a score and becomes a fact, like the weather, like the time. It's simply there, doing its slow work, asking nothing of you. Dylan can never put the watch down, because the watch is how he knows he's winning. You put the number down years ago and let it keep growing on the floor where you left it. That's the difference between owning the money and being owned by the look of it. So here's the only question left for you. When the machine calls B47 and you stand up in a room that has no idea who you are, would that silence feel like something you lost? Or would it finally feel like the thing you spent all those quiet Wednesdays building? Build it quiet.